The 1980s were an interesting time for horror movies. Studios were taking risks, video stores were booming, and some genuinely interesting films got buried in all that chaos. Here are 8 overlooked horror movies you probably forgot existed, ones that slipped through the cracks despite having talented crews, fascinating production stories, and cult followings that took decades to develop. Dead and Buried opened in May 1981, with Gary Sherman directing and a screenplay from Ronald Shusett and Dan O'Bannon, the same O'Bannon who wrote Alien. Potter's Bluff is the setting, a small coastal town where visitors keep dying in brutal ways, only to show up alive again days later. James Ferrantino plays the local sheriff, trying to unravel what's happening, and Jack Albertson, in his final live-action role, plays the town mortician, hiding secrets of his own. Stan Winston handled the special effects, years before founding Stan Winston Studios, and he worked almost entirely alone on a shoestring budget with results that still hold up today. Director Gary Sherman deliberately avoided showing the color red in any scene because he wanted blood to land with visual impact, and he went as far as swapping out car taillights for purple ones. While it made little at the box office, it's a gruesome movie and worth tracking down if you haven't seen it. Roger Christian directed this 1982 psychological horror, and his credentials are unusual for the genre. An Academy Award sat on his shelf for art direction on Star Wars. He built the original lightsaber prop, and he helped design the Millennium Falcon cockpit. For his feature directorial debut, his stated goal was something closer to Bergman than Carpenter. Katherine Harold plays Dr. Gail Farmer, a psychiatrist treating a young amnesiac patient with a dangerous ability. He can project his nightmares into other people's minds and can't control it. Željko Ivanek plays the sender in his film debut, and Shirley Knight plays his deeply troubled mother. Future talent filled out the crew in ways nobody could have predicted at the time. Cinematographer Roger Pratt shot Batman in 1989 and later worked on the Harry Potter films. Composer Trevor Jones went on to score Labyrinth and The Last of the Mohicans, and special effects supervisor Nick Alder had just won an Oscar for Alien. Paramount released it on the same day as Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, with almost no marketing push, but it's finally getting some recognition 40 years after the fact. Stuart Gordon made Reanimator and From Beyond, and sandwiched between those two was a killer doll movie that plays like a dark fairy tale. He directed from a script by Ed Naha, who would later co-create Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, with Gordon and producer Brian Usna. The story revolves around travelers who get stranded at a mansion owned by an elderly couple who make dolls. The dolls come alive, and bad things happen to bad people. An unsettling experience at the Wisconsin Historical Society gave Gordon his inspiration for the movie. He was visiting their doll collection when he got accidentally locked inside, and being confined with all those dolls while getting the creeping feeling that their eyes might be moving stuck with him long after. $3.5 million in worldwide box office against a $2 million budget, and the movie beat Child's Play to theaters by a full year. Charles Band was pleased enough with the results that he built an entire killer doll empire at Full Moon Productions, giving us Puppet Master, Demonic Toys, and Blood Dolls. This little movie started all of that. Brett Leonard made his directorial debut with this 1989 film, shooting at Agnew's Developmental Center in Santa Clara, California. That location carries genuinely creepy history. Originally called the Great Asylum for the Insane, the 1906 San Francisco earthquake destroyed it and killed over 100 patients and staff. The rebuilt facility gave Leonard an authentically eerie atmosphere no set could replicate, and Ken Kesey used the same place as inspiration for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Cheryl Lawson plays a young woman with amnesia, committed to a mental hospital built over the burial site of patients murdered by a deranged surgeon 20 years earlier, and when an earthquake cracks open the basement, the dead rise. Leonard's stepping stone to bigger things came from this movie. The Lawnmower Man followed in 19 Restless and made over $30 million. Then Virtuosity with Russell Crowe came after that. Joe Bob Briggs gave Dead Pit 4 stars, his highest rating, with specific praise for Cheryl Lawson's screaming ability. Michael Moriarty stars as Jimmy Quinn, a small-time crook who discovers that a giant flying serpent, the Aztec god Quetzalcoatl, is nesting in the spire of the Chrysler Building. David Carradine and Richard Roundtree play the cops trying to stop the creature, and Moriarty steals the entire movie. His piano-playing scenes were completely improvised, since Cohen only discovered during filming that Moriarty was an actual jazz pianist. 6 refusals from the Chrysler Building owners came before they finally agreed, near bankruptcy forcing their hand for the $18,000 fee. Cohen shot scenes at the top of the spire with a stuntman holding his belt from behind to prevent falls, and he could feel the building swaying in the wind. The machine gun incident made the papers. Empty casings fell from the top of the building and were caught by a construction canopy below. The Daily News and Post ran sensational headlines, and Cohen was essentially banned from any more gunfire for the rest of production. The scrappiest movie on this list, a werewolf picture shot in Colorado for $100,000 with a crew that had 2 working lights. High school students in a small Colorado town start investigating a series of brutal murders. Bodies keep turning up, the local sheriff's getting nowhere, and these kids decide to play detective themselves. What they eventually discover is that a werewolf is responsible, and things get messier from there as they try to convince adults who won't believe them and survive long enough to stop the thing. The cast looks way too old to be playing teenagers, but budget constraints meant the director was stuck with local Denver talent. The whole production was chaos. They shot it in 10 days, with the cinematographer admitting they only had 2 working lights. The effects team even forgot to cut eye holes in the werewolf mask, so the creature was stumbling around blind during filming. It went straight to video in 1988 and never got a proper US disc release, but it's pure VHS-era comfort food for werewolf completists. Jeff Lieberman directed this 1981 film after making Squirm and Blue Sunshine, inheriting a script originally called The Tennessee Mountain Murders that he found so bad he rewrote the entire thing and took credit under a pseudonym, the first and middle name of his newborn nephew. 5 young campers head into the Oregon wilderness, despite warnings from a forest ranger played by George Kennedy, and they're being stalked by twin mountain men, though the film takes its time revealing that detail. Silver Falls State Park, about an hour from Portland, served as the location over roughly a month in the summer of 1980 on an approximately $1 million budget. Composer Brad Fiedel, who would later score The Terminator, provided the music, and makeup effects came from Matthew Mungle, who went on to win an Oscar for Bram Stoker's Dracula. Film critic Walter Chow later introduced a screening by calling it the first feminist horror movie, and the film gets frequently cited as an influence on Wrong Turn. Code Red's Blu-ray sold out its limited run, and a 4K restoration is on the way. Michael Mann directed this adaptation of F. Paul Wilson's 1981 best-selling novel, his second feature after Thief. World War II serves as the backdrop for the story. German soldiers occupy an ancient Romanian citadel and accidentally unleash something evil that's been imprisoned inside for centuries. Scott Glenn plays a mysterious stranger who arrives to stop it. Ian McKellen plays a Jewish scholar forced to help the Nazis, and Jürgen Prochnow and Gabriel Byrne play officers with very different approaches to the occupation. The production was a nightmare from start to finish. Shooting began in September 1982 in Wales, with a planned 13-week schedule, but heavy rain damaged the sets, and Mann kept changing his vision for the creature design, stretching the shoot to 22 weeks. Mann's original work print ran approximately 3.5 hours. His intended cut came in around 2 hours, and after poor test screenings, Paramount took the film away and cut another 24 minutes without his input. While production was a mess, it remains one of the great what could have been stories in horror history.